Jameel broke 2,000. It's been a journey and now is a cause for celebration for both him and myself. Jameel, if you watch the other videos, is a pandemic player, somebody who's not come up playing over the board chess, who began recently and has been just playing online. And you see here, we're talking about a chess.com achievement and not an over the board rating achievement, whether it's USCF or FIDE. And so many people are out there who are in Jameel's same position. And one of the reasons I wanted to coach him was to have that experience, to see it through his eyes. And I'm hoping that this video series I've done, which we've done several now, several now going back years of Jameel's progress, will have people out there who see themselves in his journey. I suspect there are literally millions through a variety of skill levels on his same path. Okay, the first thing I want us to note is this number 99.8. This is anybody who's ever played on chess.com. So you might say, oh, there's some chumps on there, it's no big thing. But imagine like a gym. Maybe you've been to a gym and there's all kinds of people who've set foot in that gym, a variety of kinds of body shapes. But 1 in 500. The people who are 1 in 500 are going to be specimens, right? They can lift heavy things. They have mobility. They have calisthenics. They have endurance. They have a lot of things that you probably don't. I know I don't have. So when I've met these people, even 1 in 100, and it's just like, oh man, these people are another level. I'm not sure I could ever achieve that level. And that visual representation that we see in the athletic world, just because we can see it visually, helps us understand how huge of an achievement it is to get to 99.8. Okay. A lot of people think they can anybody can get to 2,000. I don't know. What I'm going to do here, though, is I'm going to try to dissect what does Jameel know, what can he do, and then what does he not know. We'll talk that we can use that to talk about his journey going forward as well. So let's begin with what he can do. Now, we've done a lot of work together, and something that's interesting is that Jameel can now channel. He can parrot my views. And so any positions he's in, he can say to himself, all right, I can kind of have Jesse's voice in the back of my head. And it began with, don't lose time in the opening. That was one of the things I shouted at him about. And hopefully it's deeply ingrained in his soul. And so there's a variety of things like that where, how did we do it? We did it by going over his games. ChessDojo, all about going over your games. And that's what we've done from the very beginning. And so he has a good positional understanding just using my voice in the back of his head. Can you get that through other means? Yes. There are books especially that you can read, and we have that in the dojo training program. Number 2, he actually has no opening theory. It's like if you gave him a quiz, he wouldn't be able to like recite lines like the way you do on Chessable. But because we've gone over so many of his games, he's attained a feel for how to play the different opening structures. And he's gained a sense of like not to lose time, for example. And that, I think, makes people's openings much stronger than any kind of memorization. I know people don't understand me when I'm saying that, but we'll see in this case, we'll show a game that kind of shows what I'm talking about here. That's how you become dangerous in an opening. And really, if you're just beginning chess, like Jameel did in this whole process, it's much more important to gain an intuitive sense of how the pieces move in the opening before you start doing any kind of crazy theory. Puzzle Rush. Like everybody else who's a pandemic player, dude has done a lot of Puzzle Rush. That started from the very beginning, and I couldn't even control it at first. And it's definitely helpful in that he's able to spot, let's call them the easy tactics, or helps him spot the easy tactics. We'll talk about the downsides and what he can't do, but it's definitely been a feature of his progress. And I've listed these in what I think are the most valuable to the least valuable in terms of what got him this far. We've done some chess culture. What I mean by that, we've had a great reading of Art of Attack by Vukovic, part of the ChessDojo training program. We read a lot of it together, a little bit of my own benefit to be rereading the book. And I gave him positions from the book and just being like, boss, what do we do here? A lot of those positions aren't puzzle positions. A lot of them end just with an attack, so it's like a real game. Very useful to go to. We've gone through Smyslov games, tall games, all part of the dojo training program. So that's been great, and it's also given him some familiarity with positions that he wouldn't normally get in his opening repertoire. The Polgar only up to 700, but that's definitely been something that's helped him, something he's going to need to go do more of. Polgar beating just the maiden twos that we have as part of the training program. He emphasized himself that these two things, Polgar and then Bishop and Knight, really helped him with board visualization. That's part of the idea with the maiden twos. It's learning how to do layups, but it's also visualizing, being able to grip the board. And Bishop and Knight stands for the Bishop and Knight checkmate. We got it down, at first it was a real struggle to learn that thing. This was ages ago, this was more than a year ago. But he also listed that as one of the things that was very important for him to gain a visualization. How do the pieces work together? Has he ever done a Bishop and Knight checkmate over the board? No. No, it's never happened. But it will happen eventually, but more importantly, it gave him a sense of how the pieces work together. Also, I listed this partly as a joke on myself as number 7, but I created the dojo rook endgame progression. And at the time, I said pound per pound, hour for hour, this is where you can gain the most points. And I still have a lot of sympathy with that view, but there has been basically no rook endgames the dude has ever gotten. So I feel like this will help him later, but at the moment, it's not a thing. It hasn't happened yet. And so I think I'm laughing at myself in that because I really did think that would help him a lot. I think it will help him going forward. But to get to 2,000, there has been precious few rook endgames or endgames in general. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about what he cannot do. Let's start here. I'm going to talk at length at the end of this video about why dude is not playing over the board games. It's a whole interesting psychological analysis that applies to other people. But because he doesn't have any over the board experience, he has no deep system 2. If you're interested, I did a video about system 1 and system 2 in the chess world. It's based on Daniel Kahneman's psychological findings. It takes time to develop the muscle of system 2 over the chessboard, the ability to concentrate and to focus. People think they have it, they do not. Maybe as a metaphor that just struck me, in weightlifting, if you don't have core strength, you're just going to fold on your lifts, bows. You need the core strength. And similarly with chess, it's going to take some time. And a lot of the people that Jameel's playing, they've been doing this since they were kids. And so they have the ability to grip the board with their mind without slipping. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. It's related to number 2, which is when you do Puzzle Rush, they're just these flat, like almost like quick jokes, right? Where somebody's winning at the end. What's going to happen when you play longer games is you're going to get the ability to really think deeply, do some calculation, and the lines don't end with somebody winning, they end with you evaluating the position. Totally different ball game than the Puzzle Rush. So this is something that will be developed when Jameel starts playing longer games. Again, I'm going to talk later about why he hasn't been playing longer games. It's been a whole subject of this video series I've been doing on Jameel's improvement. Third, opening theory. Like I said before, he has no memorization of opening theory. We're going to see an example of this in the game. It hasn't hurt him so far. Has not hurt him to get to 2,000. Will it eventually? Maybe eventually, right? And then I have here familiarity with different structures. Sorry, I have that a little bit. Let's bring this in here. So what do I mean by that? He's just played a couple openings. We've never really changed it up. And so he doesn't know like what a Carlsbad structure is. He might not now know it, but he hasn't ever played, say, a Carlsbad structure or a mini IQP structure. He just doesn't have that familiarity with, which comes with time, right? So this is just something he can't do yet. Then there's various elements of endgame theory. I've just noticed going through the games of his. We had a queen endgame recently, and he didn't know some of the key principles, right? So there's just holes in his understanding there. Okay, so let's look at a game, and then we're going to talk about why dude hasn't played over the board. And let's just admire for a second this amazing graph. It is straight up. We haven't had, it's not like the stock market, man. This thing is just going straight up. And it's fascinating to see and suggests, well, it clearly suggests that we're not at a plateau yet. So part of the video is, for me, is a chance to contemplate, like, well, how high are we going? And he asked me, it was like, well, are you surprised we got this far? And I guess I have to say yes, just because most people hit a plateau sooner, right? And everyone will eventually hit a plateau. And that's when the real work starts, not only in terms of chess, but the fight with yourself, because it will be so frustrating, especially after you're used to this kind of progress. Okay, so now let's go to the game. And there's just 3 points I'm going to use here. So one thing about openings is, at first, like anybody who starts lessons, Jameel was like, boss, let's do openings, let's do openings, let's do openings. And I was like, oh God, oh God, oh God. And so what I did was I just showed him a couple basic setups, really no theory, and that's served him fine so far. And he stopped asking me, because I think one of the things he's eventually understood is it hasn't been that important yet. And perhaps it will be later. One place where I thought it would be more important was this thing, where I told him, I was like, boss, just let him take on B2, recapture, and you got great development. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. And this is the Danish Gambit. And of all the openings, it was the most, let's call it off-label, that I showed him. It's been fine. And this is an example where one of the reasons is people didn't know what to do against it. Even imagine he's played 2,000. You're playing people who have studied a lot of chessable and whatnot, but this doesn't come across their radar screens. So the typical human response for the Danish has been to play CB, bishop takes, D5, and knight F6. D5, bishop takes, knight F6, and you got rough equality. Well, his opponent mixed it up and did this. Oh no, he forgot to take on B2. So I'm just going to show a couple points of this game, but the first thing is to say the opening isn't what's deciding things here, right? It really isn't. Bishop F7, dude plays King E7. This is the first moment where we're going to talk about real chess skill. By taking the queen, Jameel gives the opponent a chance to survive. Queen B3, much more dynamic. The game's going to end quicker, right? But here we go. Pop, pop, pop. And here we have a clear advantage. And here I just want to say is a typical kind of mistake that this person is going to do. Rook F8, no point in kicking the bishop like that. The pawn on F3 is dominating the rook. Of course, King E7 should be played. Now, I'm going to skip ahead. And the thing I just want to say about his opposition, I just want to make a quick point. When Jameel was like 1,500, 1,600, something I was thinking was, well, would these people be better over the board? And I was like, I don't know. I know they're distracted and everything, but I can imagine these 1,500 ChessCom people making similar mistakes over the board. Now, when I kind of look into the openings and the other games some of his opponents are playing, I'm saying to myself, you know what? These people have invested actually a lot of time into their chess. And what's going on is they are distracted at the board. Jameel is also distracted at the board. Of course, I would be too. You're playing in front of a screen. And this gets to the point that the only way Jameel's going to make progress is if he plays longer games that are over a real board. Now, could he somehow get a DGT board and hook it up to the computer and not be distracted? That would be great. We're going to talk a little bit more again at the end about why he hasn't done it, but that is what's holding him back and holding his opposition back. And because he's playing these people that are making ridiculous mistakes because they are distracted, and I see it in the time usage as well. He is just not understanding that when he gets over the board, it's going to be a lot tougher. Okay, so here we go. Pop. I want to jump ahead to move 19 here. Jameel played a great move. He played knight c2, exclamation point. Beautiful move. Kicking the bishop off this square. We're going to kick this bishop off, and then we're going to land with d6. The game then progressed, and Jameel lost control of it at a certain point, as is typical. And then I just want to show you move 43. Pop. Here Jameel played a great move and understood that in this ending, he is winning because the pawn is queening with check. This was actually an example of the knowledge of queen endings where dude didn't know about the theory of this kind of position with the h-pawn. Okay, but that was a good example of like, okay, he's thinking, and now we're seeing some visualization of the queening, pawn queening with check. Okay, so let me go back, and I want to talk a little bit about what I'm going to call the friction. Okay, so I've harangued Jameel for now years to go play. He's living in London. Honestly, there's beautiful chances to play in England. I mean, I lived in England back in the day. You go play on a team. The team travels to play with another team. You have a good time. You talk about the game. You know, beautiful, both in terms of chess and socially, just one of the most magical times in my life. My introduction to Europe and European chess in a lot of ways too. So why hasn't Jameel done it? It has everything to do with why I think other people aren't doing it. And this might be the reason why online chess takes over. So I want to look at it in a little bit more detail. The first thing is obviously to go play a tournament. And one of the things he can do is he can go just play in a league game. You know, like I said, you can play on a team, and that's just one game usually. There's a question of availability. I get it, right? There's another interesting question, though, or problem for modern people when they go play a tournament. They have to disconnect their phone and their mind from that little online world. And it might seem like I'm making a joke about it. No, but I totally get it. It's a habit that you're connected. Your mind is connected to this world that you then have to disengage from. And you're worried that there's anxiety that something from your outside world is going to immediately demand your attention and that you are blowing it by being disconnected. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this, even if you acknowledge that that might be a ridiculous thing to think that you can't be away for a couple hours. And we all have reasons to feel that anxiety. I have kids, for example. I mean, check the messages. Oh my God, who knows what's happening? Who knows what's happening, right? So that's a very important reason, number one. Didn't exist back in the day, right? But it definitely exists now. Friction, let's call this especially social friction. Now there's friction of time. I have to go make time. By time, I think what we're talking about here is not just like the time I have to take away, but it's just so easy to get online and play a game, contrasted to like, you know, in London, he's like, oh, you don't understand the traffic, man. You know, you got to get from one part of London to another, and then there's a traffic mess, and it takes some time. Of course, we all understand. But then also, this is where it's really interesting, is there's also social friction. So twice I have persuaded, and this took a lot of effort, my friends, I persuaded Jameel to go to some one of these clubs around London. The first time he's like, oh man, he comes back to the next lesson, he's like, oh yeah, there was a bunch of old people there, man. They were about to die. Those people were on death's door. So that club was out, you know, oh my gosh. Then the next one, it was like a bunch of communists there. Who knows, start talking all kinds of smack. It's London. Of course, there's always been communists in London. Karl Marx wrote there in the library, boss. So anyways, there's like a social friction. You have to interact with people when you go to a tournament, and especially if you're going to be in a club or on a team. And there's going to be people from a variety of backgrounds, and if you're introverted like I am, well, oh my gosh, you're going to have to deal with this. And it's not the end of the world if you have to deal with it, but it's just another source of friction that you don't have when you're sitting behind your computer. And here's the final one that I think is really interesting. So, as a pastime for me when I'm stressed out, I'll play Settlers of Catan online. I've played it in real life with the little pieces. I can't imagine setting that thing up anymore. So much faster to be playing it online. Like Jameel, I could play it anytime I want. Fine. And the thing to recognize is after you play it for a while online, well, it's a different game. It's a completely different game than when you're playing it over the board. Same thing with chess. So for Jameel, there's already like a block because playing over the board is so different and feels so different. Like you're just playing some weird game where you feel like, you're playing with like weird rainbow colored glasses on or something. So it's that feeling, that emotional difference that is so critical. And one of the differences is, like I said, the people he's playing. I have 2,000. I look these people up, and you can look up their bios on chess.com. You're like, I've been playing chess forever. These are the things I've done. And I know them on our training program too. People at 2,000, they are working. Like I said, these people are specimens. They're not chumps. These are real people. Look at that, 99.8. That's 1 in 500. That's some real people here. But they are making ridiculous errors online because they can't focus. And it's not because they're stupid they can't focus, it's because they're online. Because there's all these little pings and dings. You heard me, I had a little ping there. Oh my God. Did I look down? Of course I looked down. What can I do? Right? So it's a different game, and that's part of the problem that Jameel's having. So I just want to end this video by stressing, I don't know two things. If we're actually going to get Jameel to play real games. Before I was like, of course he's going to do it. I was going to excommunicate him as a student like a year ago. I was like, boss, we're done. Now I'm understanding it's like a deeper thing. And part of the journey that's interesting is I know millions of you out there have the same problem. So that's number one. I don't know. Two, if he does engage in some deeper thinking in the tournaments, when you look at this graph, I think there's every reason to think that we're just at the beginning of Jameel's chess improvement because he hasn't even done System 2 yet. How have we made progress? We're playing game 30s. Game 30s. How long can you really legitimately think in a game 30? Not too long. Not too long. You spend 5 minutes thinking. That's a lot of time. That's 1/6 of your time, boss. That's 1/6. 5 minutes. And 5 minutes, is that really enough to get deep in a position? Not really. In general, we're thinking about a lot of his games more than the games themselves took place. Their actual duration, right? That's how much longer we're thinking about each of these games. And so for me, as well as a teacher, of course, I want there to be thought for us to then consider, right? The whole thinking process that dude went through before we then look at the game and think about how our thinking process went. So I think this is very common, and I know that this is a hard switch for Jameel to face, but 2,000 is this nice ripe number, and it's going to get more and more competitive in all of these levels that we've talked about. And so I know other people are in the same position, and they are going to be having the same problem of doing longer thinking. And let me just stress, this is the whole thing about the ChessDojo training program. Even if you decide you want to be a blitz player, you're not going to be able to actually improve unless you do the long thinking. Eventually, what's the point? By doing some long thinking about hard problems, those problems will eventually become easy for you, and then you'll be able to do them quickly. Right? And then you can play good blitz chess if that's what you want to do. But chess skill in general won't happen until you do the deep work. And that's what Jameel's in front of here. All right, till next time when Jameel breaks 2,100.